Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have some winter book recommendations. So I am not a seasonal reader at all. I usually do a autumn fall recommendations video, but I don't think I've ever done a winter recommendations video before. Books that feel wintry to me are either cozy or heartwarming. You will see a couple of middle grade books in this video because middle grade to me just like feels wintry and feels Christmassy, and I do have a few fantasies for you guys as well. But just before we get into the recommendations, I would just like to let you guys know that this video has once again been very kindly sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform that has thousands of classes that cover a wide range of topics, including illustration, business management, and even baking. All of the classes are taught by industry professionals. The majority of them have a class project that goes along with them as well. So while you're watching the class, you can actually work on something and see what you've learned during the process of the class. At the moment, I personally am looking forward to 2021. I got my new planner recently and I'm really excited to get in there and make some goals for next year. So a class that I've been recently interested in is Project Management in Real Life, Simple Workflows to Achieve Your Goals, taught by Nikki Henderson. I am somebody who kind of pulls everything together last minute. I'm really good at getting stuff done, but if anything is on like an extended time period, if I need to plan something multiple weeks in advance, I'm not very good at actually following through on that. I'm good at having the ideas and I'm good at eventually executing it. I'm not somebody who can do something like a little bit at a time, and I'm hoping that this class is going to help me have an idea, plan out how to do it, actually follow through on that plan in manageable steps, and end up with a finished project. So Skillshare is not only fun and accessible, it is also extremely affordable with an annual subscription costing you less than $10 per month on average. But I do understand that taking out a new subscription service can be a little bit daunting, so I'm happy to let you guys know that for the first 1,000 people who click on the link at the top of my description box, you will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium. This means that you can sample or complete as many classes as you would like. There will be no restrictions and no ads for the extent of the trial period. Now, I have been working with Skillshare for quite some time now. They are a service that I trust and I have a lot of fun with. So if you guys would like to take me up on this offer, I would recommend that you check out the link below. But getting into those book recommendations, the first one I have is the only one I do not own, and that is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. This is a children's story that the Ghibli movie was based on, and something else that reminds me of the holidays and Christmas is animated movies. I traditionally have the television on. Even if I'm doing something else, I have the TV on and I have animated movies playing all the time because that is just the Christmas of my childhood and it makes me really happy. So Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones did have a Ghibli movie based on it. I really love Ghibli movies, but I personally prefer the book. I did read the book before I watched the movie. Howl's Moving Castle was one of the Ghibli movies that I hadn't seen at this time. And in this book we follow a young girl called Sophie who is cursed by the Witch of the Wastes and becomes an old woman. So because of this curse, she decides that she is going to get up and change her fate. She goes marching off into the wilderness, and there she stumbles across Howl's Moving Castle. Howl is this amazing, witty, eccentric wizard, and he has this like moving castle. It's a big ramshackle type of building that moves around, and when Sophie finds Howl's Moving Castle, she makes a deal with the fire sprite she finds there that he will reverse her curse if she can help him reverse his. I loved this book and I am not a fan of whimsical stories at all, but there was just something about this. It had a very traditional story feel to it. It had a couple of things in it that I really didn't expect. Like there's a little bit of a contemporary twist in there that I was not expecting going into it, and the characters are absolutely phenomenal. The banter between Sophie and pretty much anybody, but especially Sophie and Howl, really made this book for me. And there is also, for you romance lovers, there's a little bit of romance in there as well, which honestly made my day. I just loved this book so much. I love Howl as a character so much, and if you guys have not picked this up yet, especially if you like children's stories or whimsical stories, I would definitely recommend that you give it a try. The next one I have for you is pretty much the entire series that has been published to date because I love each book equally, and that is the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. So far published we have Nevermore. My copy doesn't have a dust jacket. We also have Wondersmith, and then Hollowpox was just released. I have read all three of these. I absolutely adore them. You know me, like with Howl's Moving Castle, I'm not super into middle grade. I don't read a whole ton of it. I don't love a whole ton of it, but Howl's Moving Castle and the Nevermore series, I love them with all my soul. I do think there is something very special about a children's story that you can adore as an adult, and I feel like because these are children's stories that I adore as an adult, they just mean so much more to me. So I'm just gonna hold up my dust jacketless copy of Nevermore, but this series follows a young girl called Morrigan Crow who is a cursed child, which means that everybody in the town that she lives blames everything that goes wrong on her. She is also destined to die on the eve of her 12th birthday, and during her town's bidding day, which is where influential members of the community come to take on the children of the town as apprentices, Morrigan is expecting absolutely no bids because she's cursed and everyone hates her, and also there would be no point because she's going to die soon. However, she does receive a bid from the wonderful, the magical Jupiter North, who swoops Morrigan away to the magical city of Nevermore and enters her into a series of trials that will gain her entry into the Wondrous Society. Jupiter North as a character does remind me a lot of Howl, which is one of the reasons why I love this series and I love Jupiter especially so much. But this is just such a magical, imaginative series. My favorite thing about this is the setting. Jessica Townsend just does such a wonderful job on the world building in here in a way that I just really can't put my finger on, because she's not overly descriptive. She doesn't go into what makes the magic work or anything like that. In a lot of ways, this is a very soft magic system that is fueled by things like imagination and just having the ability to do something, which is something that I normally just really don't like. But the way that Jessica Townsend has constructed everything in this series just makes it seem so real and so believable in a way that I absolutely adore. Like Nevermore, I say this all the time, but Nevermore feels like a place that you could actually visit if only you knew how to get there, which is something that for me is very important in a children's story and what makes this series really shine. We also have an excellent cast of characters in here. It is also a very diverse series. The third book that I've just read, Owlcrate, has the introduction of a female-female relationship, which I thought was wonderful, and it's not super present because it is a children's story, although I do suspect that the books are going to age up a little bit with the characters because Morrigan is 11 in the first book and in Owlcrate she's 13, but the female-female relationship and any type of romance between the adults of the world is not at the forefront of the novel because it is middle grade. It's just kind of something that exists. If you're looking for a story that is heartwarming, magical and imaginative, even if you don't like children's books, I would still recommend you give Nevermore a try, because I'm not the biggest fan of middle grade and I adore this series. This is one of my favorite series of all time and that just blows my mind. I actually have another children's book, and until this moment it completely escaped my mind that this is actually a children's book because of who the author is, but this is The Ice Dragon by George R.R. Martin. If you're looking for like a quick little fairy tale-esque story, would definitely recommend that you pick this up. It is about a dragon that everybody is scared of because he is the ice dragon and he signals the start of winter. So when he swoops overhead, he leaves frozen ground behind him, and as this is like a medieval high fantasy type world, the people don't like that because the frost means no more crops, winter is coming, it's a very hard time, there's no food and all of that stuff. Our main character in here is Adara, and she is one of the only people who does not dread the arrival of the ice dragon because she was born on the coldest day of winter and she is always cold. So one year she does approach this dragon, the following year she ends up riding this dragon, and she is always waiting for winter to arrive so she can be reunited with her dragon. This was a little bit sad and a little bit moving, which I didn't expect, but I totally should have, knowing it was a fairy tale-esque story going into it, and also that George R.R. Martin wrote it. But it really is just a beautiful, heartwarming and also sad story. It is also illustrated as well. We have some beautiful illustrations of the dragon in here. Once again, you definitely don't have to love children's stories to enjoy this book, especially as it is just a very short side thing. So if you're looking for a quick wintry icy tale, this may be the one for you. Moving on to the adult fantasy, I've completely skipped young adult. In this video you have children's fantasy or adult fantasy, no in between today. This one is quite an obvious choice, but I had to mention it because I read this series for the first time this year, and that is The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, or the entire Winter Night trilogy. So this is a beautifully written, atmospheric adult fantasy with a little pinch of romance that is steeped in Russian folklore. We follow a young girl called Vasya who lives in a small Russian town, and the people of the town have always worshipped the old gods and the spirits of the forest. Vasya's father is the lord of this town, and her mother died during childbirth. So Vasya does not really have a huge female presence in her life to teach her the ways of women. So she is known to run wild in the woods, and she behaves more like a man in this medieval, archaic kind of societal structure than a woman. So Vasya's father decides to remarry, and he brings a very devout woman into the household who is terrified of demons. This woman brings a priest along with her, and the priest starts to convert the people of the town to Christianity, meaning that the old gods and the spirits of the forest are going without tribute, which is making them progressively weaker so that they cannot hold back the evil forces of the world. This is also a historical fantasy, so the series does take place on the backdrop of real historical events, including a war and battles between the Mongolian Empire and the Russian Empire, which I believe happened in the 14th century, but history is not my forte, so please don't quote me on that. The thing that I loved about this, one, the atmosphere. It's the perfect wintry read. It is set in very snowy, very cold Russia. We have this lush forest setting. Later in the series, we also have the city of Moscow, and I really liked all of the books in this series for different reasons. They all focus on something a little bit different. We also had the element of romance in here, which I did not expect going into this, but I really loved it. If you guys have read Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia as well, you will know a little bit of what to expect from this story. In terms of the story arc and the character dynamics in there, you have a very similar thing in The Bear and the Nightingale as Gods of Jade and Shadow. And in terms of the romantic nature of the story and the romantic elements in here, I would say it is a little bit similar to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab, in that the story is romantic as a whole, but it is not heavily focused on romance. If you guys like very slow-paced, character-driven stories with heaps of atmosphere in a snowy setting with heaps of Russian folklore and a little twist of romance, I think that you guys will really enjoy this one. My last recommendation is one that I did not personally love, but I think I would have loved it if I'd have known a couple of key things about it going in, and that one is The Queens of Innis, Leah by Tessa Gratton. Now, it has been a couple of years since I read this. I don't think that the setting is snowy in here, but it is very cold. It's constantly raining and it's miserable, and if you are from the UK or a country with a similar climate, then you will know that that is the reality for a lot of us with winter. We don't get snow, we just get a whole ton of rain, absolutely no daylight, and it is freezing outside. So this is a retelling of Shakespeare's King Lear. We are following King Lear's three daughters, who are Galia, Regan, and Elia, I think. Galia is battle hungry, Regan is manipulative, and Elia is the very quiet, devout one. King Lear has become obsessed with prophecies in his later years, but he is also growing sickly, and he needs to pick an heir to the kingdom. However, he refuses to do so until the longest night of the year, which pits all three of the sisters against each other as they are all kind of battling for the throne. The main dynamics in here are between Galia and Regan, who are kind of allied together, and Elia, who is her father's favorite. And Galia and Regan think that Elia is going to get the throne, but Elia doesn't actually want it, but it does seem likely that her father is going to pick her. So the reason I did not adore this is because I just did not realize how slow it was. If I'd have been prepared for the slowness of this book going into it, I think I would have loved it a whole ton more, because I do really love slow stories, but this book does not have a single action scene throughout the entire thing. It is extremely dramatic, but it is a very quiet type of drama. We have like a ton of betrayal in here. The sisters are sabotaging each other. There's quite a bit of politics. There's also a little bit of romance as well, but it is not an action book. This does not culminate in a big battle for the throne. It is very much like personal drama and political drama, and if I would have known that going into this, I do think I would have enjoyed it more, because I was just kind of waiting for the epic conclusion to this really long, slow book, and it never really came, because it's not that kind of book. One thing that I did love about this is the writing. It is quite dense, but it is also beautifully and very lyrically written. So I think that this is one for people who can appreciate the beauty of the writing and don't mind that the story is so slow. Because it's not very action based, it is incredibly character driven, and I would say, based on my own personal experience reading this, that none of the sisters are particularly likable. So I do think that this is a difficult book to love, but I think it is perfect for winter. It is atmospheric atmospheric, it is beautifully written, and if any of the things I have said appeal to you, then you may want to consider picking this up. It is also queer as well. There is a gender queer character in here. So that is it. Those are my 5 wintry book recommendations. Please recommend me some like wintry type books in the comments. I mean, I know I'm not a seasonal reader, but through the months of like November to February, if there are any quite cold fantasies, I do sometimes pick them up in those months. Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik is on my radar. I am really interested in that one, but I still haven't read Uprooted, even though they're not necessarily connected. They're just the same type of story by her. I would like to read Uprooted first because it was published first, but I am on the lookout for things especially that are like The Queens of Innis, Leah, but maybe not so slow, and The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. Just really slow, atmospheric, wintry reads. So if you have any of those, then please let me know. A huge thank you once again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. If you would like to take me up on the offer of a free trial of Skillshare Premium, please go ahead and check out the link that is in my description box. But aside from that, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you will find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish body butter and candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you will go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.